Imagine a thinker so influential that his ideas sparked revolutions, reshaped educational systems, and laid the groundwork for modern democracy. Jean-Jacques Rousseau did just that. Known for his profound reflections on society, freedom, and education, Rousseau challenged the very foundations of the social order in his time. His life and works continue to inspire and provoke debate, making him a pivotal character in the history of philosophy and political thought. This is the story of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was born on June 28, 1712, in Geneva, Switzerland. His early life was marked by tragedy and instability. His father, a watchmaker, was exiled due to an involvement in a duel, and his mother died shortly after his birth. Raised by his aunt and cousin, Rousseau later lived with a pastor named Lembercier. Despite receiving some instruction on the principles of the Catholic faith, Rousseau had no formal education. At the age of 12, he began working as an apprentice to a clerk, and later as an engraver. In 1728, Rousseau left his apprenticeship in Geneva, surviving on small jobs as he traveled. He eventually arrived in Turin, where he converted to Catholicism. Rousseau's fortunes changed in 1731 when he secured employment with noblewoman Louise Eleanore de Warrens. Working as a clerk and music teacher in her household, Rousseau had ample time to educate himself, reading extensively to compensate for his lack of formal schooling. In 1740, he moved to Lyon to teach music in the household of Abbé de Mably. In 1742, Jean-Jacques Rousseau moved to Paris, where he continued to pursue his interest in music, publishing a pamphlet on musical notation and presenting his theories to the prestigious Academy of Sciences. His reputation was on the rise, leading to his appointment as secretary to the French ambassador in Venice from 1742 to 1743. Rousseau's critique of developed societies centered on their inherent injustices and inequalities. Back in Paris, he began to establish important social connections. He secured employment with the influential financier Dupin, residing at the elegant Château de Chenonceau. Rousseau also formed an important association with Denis Diderot, the editor of the monumental collection of Enlightenment essays known as the Encyclopedia, which was published in 1751 after 4 years of work. Rousseau contributed several essays to the Encyclopedia, focusing on music and political economy. In 1752, the arrival of an Italian opera company in Paris performing works of opera buffa, or comic opera, by composers like Giovanni Battista Pergolesi, Alessandro Scarlatti, and Leonardo Vinci sparked a heated debate among French music enthusiasts. The public was divided into two camps: supporters of the new Italian opera and advocates of the traditional French opera. Rousseau argued for the superiority of Italian music on the principle that melody should take precedence over harmony. By advocating for melody, Rousseau introduced what would later be recognized as a core idea of Romanticism, the belief that the free expression of the creative spirit is more important than strict adherence to formal rules and traditional procedures. In the realm of music, Rousseau was a liberator. He championed the idea of freedom in music, advocating for the Italian composers as exemplary models. Rousseau succeeded in transforming people's attitudes toward music. Under Rousseau's influence, European music took a new direction. However, Rousseau, who was committed to his role as a moralist and determined to break with worldly values, ceased his work for the theater. He chose to devote his energies to literature and philosophy instead. As part of what Rousseau called his reform or self-improvement, he began to revisit the austere principles he had learned as a child in the Calvinist Republic of Geneva. Determined to realign with those values, he decided to return to Geneva, renounce his Catholicism, and seek readmission to the Protestant Church. Rousseau was readily readmitted to the Calvinist communion, his literary fame making him a welcome figure in a city that valued culture as much as morals. By this time, Rousseau had completed his second discourse on the origin of inequality, dating to 1755. In response to a question posed by the Academy of Dijon, what is the origin of the inequality among men, and is it justified by natural law? In tackling this question, Rousseau created a masterpiece of speculative anthropology. Building on his first discourse, he argued that people are naturally good and traced the stages through which they descended from primitive innocence to corrupt sophistication. Rousseau begins by distinguishing between natural inequality arising from differences in strength and intelligence, and artificial inequality, which is stemming from societal conventions. He focuses on the latter, using what he considered a scientific method to reconstruct early human life. Contrary to Thomas Hobbes's depiction of the state of nature as poor, nasty, brutish, and short, Rousseau posits that original humans were solitary but healthy, happy, good, and free. Human vices, he argues, emerged with the formation of societies. Rousseau exonerates nature and blames society, asserting that vices arose with social development. He suggests that societies began when people built their first huts, facilitating family life and neighborly association. This nascent society was a golden age of human history, but was short-lived. The birth of romantic love also brought jealousy, leading to comparisons and competition. This marked the first steps toward inequality and vice, as innocent self-love turned into pride, with each person wanting to outdo others. The introduction of property marked a significant step toward inequality, necessitating laws and government to protect it. Rousseau laments this fatal concept in one of his more eloquent passages, describing the horrors resulting from abandoning a state where the earth belongs to no one. These ideas in his second discourse later inspired revolutionaries like Karl Marx and Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. However, Rousseau himself did not believe the past could be undone. There was no point in dreaming of a return to the Golden Age. Civil society, as Rousseau described it, serves two purposes: to provide peace for everyone and to secure property rights for the fortunate. While it offers some benefits to all, it disproportionately gives more advantages to the rich by transforming their de facto ownership into rightful ownership and keeping the poor dispossessed. Rousseau views the social contract as somewhat fraudulent, as the poor receive much less from it than the rich. Yet the rich are no happier, because societal life breeds perpetual dissatisfaction. Society fosters mutual hostility as interests conflict, with people masking their antagonism behind superficial courtesy. For Rousseau, inequality is a feature of the broader process by which humans become alienated from nature and innocence. In the dedication of the second discourse, presented to the Republic of Geneva, Rousseau praises the city-state for achieving a balance between natural equality and socially instituted inequality. He observed that in Geneva, the best individuals were chosen by the citizens for the highest positions of authority. Like Plato, Rousseau believed a just society was one where everyone was in their proper place. Having explained in the second discourse how people lost their liberty, Rousseau wrote another book, Du Contrat Social, or The Social Contract, to propose how they might regain it. Geneva served as his model, not as it was in 1754 when he returned to reclaim his citizenship, but as it had been in the past, shaped by Calvin's vision. The social contract begins with the striking statement, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains," arguing that people need not remain constrained. Rousseau contends that a genuine social contract, unlike the fraudulent one described in Discourse on the Origin of Inequality, could offer true political liberty. This liberty is found in obedience to self-imposed laws. Rousseau's definition of political liberty raises a challenge. While individuals are free when following their self-prescribed rules, society comprises individuals with conflicting wills. Rousseau's solution is the concept of the general will, uniting society as an artificial person. The social contract forms society as a pledged group, creating a collective will to further the common interest, even when it conflicts with personal interests. Rousseau echoes Thomas Hobbes by stating that entering civil society involves people alienating themselves and their rights to the community. However, Rousseau views this as an exchange of natural rights for civil rights. This exchange is beneficial, as the surrendered rights are of dubious value, reliant on individual might, while the obtained rights are legitimate and enforced by the community's collective power. By 1758, Rousseau had left Paris to seek a simpler life on the country estate of his friend near Montmorency. Finding the social demands there similar to Paris, he retreated to a nearby cottage, Montlouis, under the protection of the Marechal de Luxembourg. However, even this high-ranking friend couldn't shield him in 1762 when his treatise Émile ou de l'éducation, Émile, or On Education, scandalized the Jansenists of the French Parliament, while The Social Contract upset the Calvinists of Geneva. Both works were ordered to be burned, and Rousseau was arrested. The Marechal de Luxembourg only managed to help him escape from France. After renouncing his Genevan citizenship in 1763, Rousseau spent the rest of his life as a fugitive. Rousseau's years at Montmorency were his most productive. Within 12 months, he published The Social Contract, Émile, and Julie ou Le Nouvel Héloïse, Julie or The New Eloise. While The New Eloise escaped censorship and became widely praised, The Social Contract and Émile made him enemies among magistrates and clergy. These works positioned him at the forefront of Romanticism, influencing the era's literary developments. In his last decade, Rousseau focused on autobiographical works, most notably Confessions, Rousseau, Juge de Jean-Jacques, or Rousseau, Judge of Jean-Jacques, and La Rêverie du Promeneur Solitaire, or Reveries of the Solitary Walker. These writings marked a shift from intense passion to gentle lyricism, reflecting his regained peace of mind. He spent his final years under the protection of French noblemen, passing away in the park of the Marquis de Jardin at Ermenonville.